Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Held Back podcast. I am Anthony Corby, and on today's episode, I am going to be going over the synopsis of the story and then also sharing the inspiration for writing this story. Um, just a few things before we get started. The release date will be May 14th if you haven't seen that on social media or anything yet. Podcast will run every Friday at 8 p.m. through May 7th. And if you're looking for updates about the book and about perhaps events maybe in the future, follow me on Instagram at @ACorbyBooks, ACORBI Books. Anyway, let's get started. So in the last podcast, I went over how the story came about. I gave a few things for you to kind of piece together a little bit about what the story might be about. It's a coming of age story. It's about a kid in high school. And then obviously, because of the title, he's been held back for another year. Um, so the main character, his name is Julian Bales, and he is forced to repeat his senior year of high school after the school finds out he didn't meet one of his requirements. So I'm actually going to read you the description right now that's going to be on the back cover of the book, and it's going to be on Amazon as well. It says I shouldn't say it says, I wrote this. After 4 long, miserable years of high school, Julian Bales drives to school the morning of graduation for practice, thinking that night would be the last time he would ever have to see Northville High School again. Northville High School is basically in New Jersey. It's the town of Northville is a fictional town that's in Central Jersey, but like the northern part of Central Jersey. And yes, Central Jersey does exist. It's in the middle. It is not South Jersey because you can't compare it to Gloucester County or Cumberland County, and it is not North Jersey because you can't compare it to Newark or Edison or anything like that. So Central Jersey, Lawrenceville, Ewing, Toms River, that is all Central Jersey. So just something to keep in mind for anybody that lives in New Jersey. But yeah, however, just hours before he is set to graduate and go on to community college, he receives some devastating news. He has missed a requirement, which he can only make up by staying for another year. So Julian starts his 5th year of high school feeling more miserable than he did the last 4, but things slowly begin to change after he discovers his closest friend who did graduate and go on to college has lost his mind. And I'm not going to give away a few things from this. I'm not going to give away how he receives the news or how his friend loses his mind because those are key parts of the story. But anyway, as he goes back to school the following Monday, will he finally begin to appreciate his high school and all that it has done for him? Read the book to find out. So, uh, he's basically the kid detests high school, and he's basically been counting down the days until graduation for years. His friend used to he used to have some funny pranks that he would do with his friend, who's the one that loses his mind. Um, and so basically, he kind of looked to this kid, and this kid also wanted to graduate as quickly as possible and just move on because they hated high school. They hated high school. They didn't want to see their friend, or I shouldn't say their friends. They didn't want to see anyone they went to school with. For whatever reason, they disliked them, and this is kind of based on, my own high school experience a little bit. Like I said, some of the things that some of my friends would say, some of the things that even I would think, and stuff like that. So this story is basically about Julian Bales and his 5th year of high school, but his story is similar to that of um, the Grinch and Ebenezer Scrooge, and that's all I'll say on that subject. And you can do whatever you want with that information. But there are still a lot of events late in the story that are kind of shocking. so I haven't given away too much yet. Um, so I'm also going to read really quickly the original synopsis idea that I had, and then a chapter, like the original idea that I put in a synopsis on the chapter. So uh, on my computer, I have a document, and I've had a document since at least 2012, where I would write down book ideas, and then, I would either decide to write them, or I would go back, I would open the document and look at a previous idea and think, hey, maybe I should write that today, or something like that. And so one of the times when I was switching computers, I think like I put it on Google Drive, but I never downloaded it. But I made a new document a few months ago, and was writing down some book ideas. And so here is the original idea that I had for the book when I was writing it down back on December 26th, 2020. So 4 months ago, or almost 4 months ago at this point. So I wrote, a kid finds out the day of graduation that he missed a writing requirement and is unable to graduate high school and must return to make up one class. So that kind of changed a little bit. It's not a writing requirement, it's a technology requirement. Um, and so I wrote, he either, and then I have 2 bullet points. He either learns from the kids in his class who he is required to be in a group with, although the group already knows each other and are also seniors. And then he learns how to appreciate high school by going to football games with them. And then the second idea was basically kind of, in a sense, the opposite. He's in a class with all freshmen who look up to him, and he becomes sort of their father, and they push him to get involved in high school events like going to football games and prom. Uh, so I went with the second idea because I thought that that would be a much more compelling story. If he's in a class with just a bunch of freshmen, and here he is, a 19-year-old guy in a class with like a bunch of 15-year-olds, that gives some humor, I thought. Um, so I he does become sort of their father, but it's not like as much as I wanted him to initially. I wanted there to be more interaction with him and the freshman. There's still a lot of interaction. It's just like not as much as I originally planned for, and I think that makes the story better. That there's not all of that. But anyway, I changed this idea a little bit when I was writing uh, a chapter synopsis, or when I was like writing a synopsis for each chapter. So I had a main idea at the top, and then, I wrote this main idea, and then I basically, one day, I went through, I think this was December 29th. I went through and I looked at the idea, and then I like started to think, okay, well, what should happen in each chapter? And I didn't even do this for Empty. When I was writing Empty, I just like kind of started writing, and then, an idea took shape. But this was a lot more planned out than any of the other books that I've written before. So the original idea that I put at the top of the document, which was the second idea that I had based off of this main idea, um, was this. A kid finds out the day of graduation that he missed a liberal arts requirement. Then I remembered they don't have that in high school because it's not college. And so liberal arts is only a department in college. But anyway, he missed a liberal arts requirement and is unable to graduate high school and must return to make up one class. That stayed consistent. He is in a class with all freshmen who look up to him and becomes sort of their father after his only friend, who is in college, explains that college isn't any better than high school. So a couple things there. Um, like I said before, he doesn't really become sort of their father. He becomes like, and this is mentioned actually later in the book. One of the characters says it's like a different type of family relation. He's like an uncle to them, basically, instead of a father. And so his friend, his only friend who was in college, explains that college isn't any better than high school. Uh, that changes as well, because I wanted to make this funnier. So he doesn't just like sit him down and talk to him and like cry to him or anything like that. The original idea that I had was that he would just cry about like how bad college was. That changes. Like when I was reading his description, or like it says, uh, he loses his mind or has lost his mind. And I'm not going to explain what that means. You're just going to have to read the book for that one. But anyway, they push him to get involved in high school events like going to football games and prom. So I'm not going to give away too much here, but I talk a lot about football games and then prom. He doesn't go to football games, and that's all I'll say. He doesn't go to any football games. What he does go to, well, you'll have to read the book to find out that part. Anyway, let's move on to inspiration. So, I have a social media post that's probably going to be posted sometime. I don't know when. I haven't really mapped it out yet. I did something for Empty where I explained, or I made a graphic, like a collage showing the different things that inspired me. And so, let's see if I can actually pull it up right now. Um, so I put Distance Over Time by Dream Theater, The Wall by Pink Floyd. This was for Empty, by the way. Enema by Tool. Uh, Scenes from a Memory by Dream Theater. Faulty Towers, which was a British show in the 70s. And then a little bit of Roll the Bones by Rush. And so the inspiration, the media inspiration for this album, so not in terms of my high school experience or anything, as mentioned in the last podcast, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens and the album by Majestica were both pretty substantial inspirations for this. And then also, uh, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So can you detect a theme? It's surprising that this isn't a Christmas book. It's not. It doesn't really even reference Christmas that much. I mean, it references winter break a little bit, but not Christmas uh, per se, and there's not really a Christmas scene in here. Um, Also, the following album or the previous album to A Christmas Carol by Majestica, an album titled Above the Sky, that serves as a kind of inspiration. There are like a few settings that I imagine some of the songs in the album being played in, and it's a really good album. It's kind of mainstream metal, so if anybody wants to check that out, I think that's pretty cool. And then you heard me laugh after I said Scenes from a Memory by Dream Theater because that's also an inspiration for this book as well. But it's actually pretty minimal. It's just some of the character names. So in the last book, the main character was Nick. And in this one, it's Julian. And those are two of the main characters in the concept album Scenes from a Memory by Dream Theater. So anyway, that's going to be all for this episode. So thank you so much for tuning in to episode 2 of the Held Back podcast. I'm Anthony Corby. I hope to see you next Friday when I'll be going over the characters and who they are in real life. Take care, everybody. Have a